Patrick Mahomes warming up. That means you're creeping up toward kickoff time. Big game between the Chiefs and the Bengals, at least on paper. Looks like to be the most entertaining one of the week. And there is Mahomes' counterpart, Joe Burrow, he of the Ultra Swag. And he of the division-leading Cincinnati Bengals. Big one against Kansas City. Welcome to NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. I'm Marcus Grant alongside Adam Rank, who's way over there. Michael Florio, who's not quite as far over there, but still a little bit far over there. Look at us.
Oh, look at us.
We're so spread out.
I feel like I'm in the dark over here. Is that right? What is happening?
It is like we were in three boxes, yet we
should
are
in the Should I take my phone out and illuminate myself?
I mean, like if I wadded up, this rundown, I could throw it at Adam Rank and stuff if I wanted.
The one with the one with the fantasy rundown. I'm locked in.
Yeah, you know, wind drag and everything. Anyway, it's week 17, which is now championship week, and what is the biggest season ever?
Let's not do this again. Let's go back to 16.
Let's go back to 16. I'm down with that. Do you guys have anybody? 14. Either of you guys have championship teams playing this week?
I do. Yeah, I'm sorry, Michael. I keep jumping in there. I've got two. Jimmy Coe and I have one. Okay. In the League of Leagues. And I've got another one with Tommy Dreamer's league. I'm in every league where I didn't have Kirk Cousins or Tom Brady. We're on the live. I'm sorry. Yeah, look at all these names of guys.
Yeah, okay, so these are the early game actives and inactives. Lamar Jackson, we know, is out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out. Cam Akers, we weren't really expecting to play, but Miles Sanders out with that hand. We knew that early in the week. Some notable actives, though: Damian Harris, Hollywood Brown, Antonio Brown, and Mike Evans. These are from the later games. Right now, Jared Goff is doubtful with that knee injury. Jimmy Garoppolo looking doubtful. Don't think he's thrown a football all week. We know Teddy Bridgewater is out, but meanwhile, the Broncos running backs of record, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, expected to play. Eli Mitchell expected to play. James Conner is a game-time decision. But speaking of the 49ers, they've got the Houston Texans today. Mentioned that Jimmy Garoppolo does not look like he is going to play. So it could be Trey Lance season. So, Rank, does that make you nervous at all about Deebo Samuel or George Kittle today?
Not really. I think that George Kittle is going to be a must-play regardless. I think for Deebo, though, I think the bigger issue is that Elijah Mitchell is going to be back. And when that happens, that means less running opportunities for Deebo Samuel. So we did see these two connect during the preseason, and I think we're seeing that right there. And so I feel okay with Deebo as a receiver. I just don't think that we'll see it as much with him running as much.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about Deebo because what he can do as a runner or a receiver. And Kittle's the same type of player. Like, he's so good after the catch. I think they're going to design a lot of short passes where those guys could just run in space. Brandon Ayuk is the one that I would be getting away from this week. The other two, I think, are still must-starts.
It just feels like the Niners haven't been able to sustain 3 pass catchers in a game so far this season. We see Lamar Jackson is out. It seems sort of likely. There was a video of him on Twitter. He was kind of limping around the practice field. Didn't seem likely to play. But, Floria, we go in Tyler Huntley today. How are we feeling about that?
I think Huntley is similar to Trey Lance. Like, they're good streaming options. I would put Taysom Hill in that group as well. Likely comes down to which one gets the rushing touchdown for who scores the most points. But we've seen what Huntley can do. Lamar Jackson light. He scored 35 fantasy points against the Packers. I'm not expecting that against a tough Rams defense, but we know the upside he brings as a dual-threat quarterback. I think he's in play as a streaming option this week.
Yeah, he's played well in his 2 previous starts with Lamar Jackson, or 2 games, I guess I should say, with Lamar Jackson out. Over to Minnesota, we learned earlier in the week that Adam Thielen was going on injured reserve. We learned a couple days ago that Kirk Cousins not going to be available after testing positive for COVID. So with those 2 players out, Rank, how are we feeling about Justin Jefferson?
I still feel pretty comfortable with Justin Jefferson, one of the elite receivers in the game. I think that, whenever you have a young quarterback like Trevor Siemian or an inexperienced guy or however you want to refer to him as, what do you do? When you come out, when you get an opportunity to play, you just throw it to the guy that you know is the best player on the field. So I think that, if you're playing DFS or something like that, certainly you want to pivot away from Justin Jefferson. However, if you're playing in season-long leagues, unless your team is absolutely stacked, and I've seen a couple of you guys on Twitter saying this, I'm playing him. I think you just have to go with him.
I would agree.
Yeah, I have him in my top 20 as well. I lowered him, but I still have him in there.
I mean, I just don't know where else the targets are going to go. They're just going to throw the football to Justin Jefferson over and over again. All right, that gets us to our waiver wire presented by KFC. These are some waiver wire targets heading into Week 17. Taysom Hill, Trey Lance. You heard Florio mention them as streaming options. Jeff Wilson Jr. out there, though with Eli Mitchell back, maybe not as attractive. Rashad Penny. You can get some Rex in the flex, perhaps, against the 49ers. Boston Scott very much in play. KJ Osborne and Devontae Parker, some of the wide receiver options that are out there. But where are we going now? We're talking...
I'm going to talk with the Bears defense.
That's right. Okay, you should talk about that then.
Yeah, I like the Bears defense this week, going up against the New York Giants in a Mike Glennon revenge game. But still, this Bears defense has played pretty well. Even though they've lost Khalil Mack this season, Bobby Quinn is on the cusp of setting the Bears' single-season sack record. And I still think that they've got enough young players and can cause some problems for some people. So if you're looking for a defense to stream, and you might be, over the last couple of weeks, I think the Dolphins are still an okay option given the weather that we're going to see in Tennessee today. But I think if you do need to pick up a defense, the Bears are the way to go.
Yeah, I love the Bears call this week, Rank. We just spoke about him, but I think Trey Lance, to me, if you're in need of a quarterback, I'm getting a lot of questions on Twitter that people who are in need of a streaming option. He is my favorite bet this week. I know in his one start this year, he scored 15 fantasy points. The week before that, we keep overlooking, he scored 20 in just the second half. So we know the upside he brings, especially in a great matchup against the Texans. I have him ranked as my QB 11 this week, and I'm starting him in a championship game.
Well, I'm going to go with a running back in Philadelphia. It's everybody's favorite sports talk radio caller, Boston Scott. With Miles Sanders, we know out. Jordan Howard, likely to play, but he's dealing with a stinger. This could be a pretty good workload for Boston Scott in this one. The Washington football team has been not great defensively so far this season. I also think he's going to get some targets. He didn't get any targets last week, but that felt kind of like an anomaly. I know that the Eagles don't throw it quite as much, but when they do, hopefully they'll throw a couple of short passes in the direction of Boston Scott. All right, that gets us to 15 for 15 presented by Geico. We will start with a list of must-start quarterbacks. Rank, you put this together. Please take us through it.
Oh, the chalkiest of all quarterback boards. Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers. I have Joe Burrow a little bit further down this list because the Chiefs' defense is so good, but still feel that he's a pretty good option. But I'd like to focus in for a moment on Jalen Hurts, who I don't know why we still continue to receive questions about Jalen Hurts. I think he's done enough to prove that he should be a starting quarterback every week. And for that reason right there, the last time he played the Washington FT, he rushed for a pair of touchdowns, scored close to 30 fantasy points. And again, because of the floor with his running ability, he has to be started. And he's also been pretty adept as a passer. But yeah, Jalen Hurts, top 5 quarterback for me this week.
He's been so good all year long, just 20 points week after week after week. All right, let's get to the running back board. Florio, please let us know who you got.
Ronald Jones, I think, is a must-start. I have him in my top 5 this week against the Jets. I expect big things for Darrell Williams, have him inside my top 10. DeAndre Swift, no one struggles more against pass-catching running backs than Seattle, and we know that's where he thrives. Elijah Mitchell, it's looking like he's going to be back, and the Texans give up more rushing yards to running backs than any team in the NFL. And then Sony Michel against the Ravens. Look, the Ravens defense is so beat up right now. There's no Darrell Henderson. There's no Cam Akers. This is going to be the Sony Michel show. I'm expecting a big day for him, and I mean just the Rams offense in general. I like Sony Michel. He's in my top 15 running backs, and I know Rank has been all over him this week, saying he could be a top 3 fantasy running back, so we're very high on Sony Michel here.
Yeah, man, he's completely taken over as the #1 running back. Even when Henderson was healthy, was getting a lot of touches the last couple of weeks. Let's look at the wide receivers now. Start with Brandon Cooks at the top there against the 49ers. Cole Beasley, who is expected back for the Bills today. Deontay Johnson has been consistently good for the Steelers. Allen Lazard, even though MVS is back, I do think Allen Lazard still has some opportunities. He's been a touchdown guy the last few weeks. And Devontae Smith has a really good matchup against the WFT. But let's go back up top to Brandon Cooks, who for the most part, it's been pretty good. I know he's had some up and down weeks, but this feels like a week for him to really bounce back. The Niners have been weak in the secondary all season long. There's a chance for Brandon Cooks to kind of get behind the defense, make some plays. I actually sneakily kind of like Davis Mills in this one, too. I think he's got some deep sleeper potential, but Brandon Cooks feels like he's in line for a really big week this week. All right, and we will round this one out with the tight ends. Rank, you got the honors for this one.
Yeah, Mark Andrews, who is actually the tight end one on the season, has been playing great. Decent enough matchup against the Rams. Feel comfortable about that. Kelsey Kittle, Rob Gronkowski, and, of course, the Dawson Knox. But let's take a moment to talk about Travis Kelce, which I know that you're starting him anyways. But I know a lot of people are concerned because last week, Tyreek Hill returned from the COVID-19 list, scored less than 5 fantasy points, and perhaps you could see something similar with Travis Kelce. But the Cincinnati Bengals have allowed a lot of production to opposing tight ends this season. They're top 10 in points allowed to the position. So I think that Kelce is going to be a fantastic matchup. So don't worry about it. You're all good. And enjoy your championship week.
Yeah, you got Travis Kelce. You're just cruising along.
Doing
Everything's
great.
all good. Coming up next on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico, we're sliding into some DMs, giving you our definitely must-starts. Will Jaylen Waddle be one of those? I mean, he's been pretty much a must-start for a good part of the season for the Dolphins and fantasy managers. And there's Odell Beckham Jr. He and his Rams teammates in Baltimore with a very good matchup against the Ravens defense. JTT, Jonathan Taylor touchdown. Hoping for multiples of those today against the Las Vegas Raiders. You got your wish, Florio. You made it to Sunday.
Oh, they put him in the bubble. We're good to go.
Wait a minute. No, I'm just kidding.
Just eating takeout all week long, not going out.
There he is, too.
Cooper Kupp, another guy who has helped plenty of folks get to Week 17 in their respective fantasy leagues. Right now, the leading candidate for fantasy MVP. Hopefully getting some votes for actual NFL MVP as well for what he has done. But we know it's a quarterback award, so it's probably going to go to Aaron Rodgers anyway. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. Don't forget to send us your questions, by the way. Should have mentioned at the top of the show. We are answering your questions. You can hit us up on Twitter at NFL Fantasy. You can also go to the YouTube page and drop some questions in the comments section. I believe we have some folks answering there as well. So a couple different ways to get some questions answered. And we're going to get some on the screen for you. All right, this one is for you. Start with you, Florio. We're going to go go, let's see, start or sit. What is this? Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson, AB, Brandon Cooks. There you go.
It seems like a little bit of a humble brag here, but for me, Brandon Cooks is the odd man out. Look, the other three are all wide receiver ones for me. I like Brandon Cooks because of volume, but he's not in the same class as the other three.
All right.
Makes sense.
All right, so this one for you, Rank. Let's see. I can't even see these. I'm going to lean forward. I'm in a 12-man league playing for the championship. I don't know if I should start Trey Lance, Matt, or someone else. All right.
Yeah, go Trey Lance.
There you go.
I just put this out on Twitter. I want to know, what camera am I looking at? Hey, there you go. It's funny because it's Trey Lance, Taysom Hill, or the other guy.
Huntley?
Tyler Huntley. Feels like the three streamable quarterbacks. I think of those three, I think Taysom Hill's the number one guy of those three.
All right, cool. So there you go. There's your answer there. Let's see, one more. Would you start?
I'm going Lance.
Wait, what? Would you start at QB, Stafford or Burrow? You know what? I'm going to say Matt Stafford in this one. And I like both these guys this week. I think they both have really good matchups. But Stafford's matchup a lot better against the Ravens secondary that has been just kind of beat up lately. So, all right, that gets us to fantasy DMs, the players that are definite must-starts. We're not doing this in a creepy way. We're just sliding into DMs in a more reasonable fantasy football-themed way. All right, Florio, who are you DMing in this
I'm going to DM right now. I'm DMing Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's just the sun god, as Marcus has dubbed him. He has just been awesome as of late. I mean, he's proven us over the last month that he's a little bit quarter-proof. He got the job done last week with no Jared Goff. The matchup against Seattle doesn't scare me. He's been getting 11 targets or more in 4 straight games, over 15 fantasy points in all, over 23 in 3 of those. So for me, I think he is a must-start wide receiver. Jared Goff or no Jared Goff, I would be playing Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I like that one, too. I think he's kind of like I think Matt Harmon put that out there on Twitter this week about how he's a Cooper Kupp light kind of guy. I like Rashad Penny, and I know we talked about the weather in Seattle earlier this week, and I know a lot of people have been talking about it. It's okay. It's rainy. It's not going to be snowy. But I still think it's going to be an opportunity for Rashad Penny. I think that the Seahawks would like to focus on running the football. And as you see, those totals on the board are correct. Over 130 rushing yards in 2 out of his last 3 games. Seems to have really settled in to that RB1 role for the Seattle Seahawks. So I think he's an absolute must-start this week.
Yeah, no, he's been great down the stretch and has a great matchup against that Lions run defense today. For me, though, I am looking at the guy on the other side of the matchup. That is DeAndre Swift going against the Seahawks. And you heard Florio talk about how he really excels as a pass catcher, and that is a place where the Seahawks defense is deficient when it comes to defending running backs. Look, with no Jared Goff expected to play here, I don't know that Tim Boyle is going to push it downfield a ton. I think St. Brown gets his targets, but I think a lot of opportunity goes to DeAndre Swift, and maybe he even hurdles a couple of defenders the way he did in that highlight video there. But I think he's definitely a startable guy. Should be in your lineup. All right, next up on NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico, we've got guys you shouldn't sleep on today because, you know, it's time for you to wake up and all that kind of stuff. Sunday Sleepers is next. Will we see Carson Wentz in that list? He is playing today. And then there's Tua Tagovailoa. He's got the Tennessee Titans. Maybe some deep sleeperish. He's kind of had a low ceiling. We'll see if maybe he can raise that up a little bit this week. Patrick Mahomes, we saw him in warm-ups earlier. Now he is in uniform, still getting loose for the big game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Chiefs aiming for the 1 seed in the AFC. Meanwhile, there is Matthew Stafford taking some practice snaps before the Rams get ready to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Rams trying to get a little step closer to locking up the NFC West. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day. I'm Marcus Grant along with Michael F. Florio and Adam Rank. Actually, they're reversed on the screen. You know who's who. You've been watching the show a long time. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the notable actives and inactives. First, from the early games, we know Lamar Jackson is out, so is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Miles Sanders was declared out earlier in the week. On the active side of the ledger, though, Damian Harris, Marquise Brown, and a pair of Buccaneers wide receivers, Antonio Brown and Mike Evans. Now, these for the later games. Jared Goff looking doubtful with a knee injury. Jimmy Garoppolo and his thumb look doubtful for the 49ers. Teddy Bridgewater already out with a concussion. Both Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams are expected to play with their respective knee injuries. Elijah Mitchell expected to play also with a knee injury. I should say Melvin Gordon has a thumb and a hip injury. And then James Conner, a game-time decision with his heel injury. So, again, you can send us your questions on Twitter. You can also send them in the comments section there on YouTube. But now time for some burning questions. The first one is about Cooper Kupp. Now, he needs 22.65 fantasy points to pass Jerry Rice for the most in a single season by a wide receiver. Does he do it today against the Ravens, Adam Rank?
Absolutely. I mean, this Ravens defense has been decimated by injuries as it is. So Cooper Kupp has been the most automatic player for the entirety of the season, and I expect that to continue, although I don't care for the Rams uniforms. They have such a nice selection of fits, and they decided to go with this.
The blue one is the best one.
I believe it's called Bone is the color. Yes.
Don't care for it. Why not go with the yellow pants?
Yellow pants would have been sweet.
Would have been great.
Do you concur with Cooper Kupp?
He's Cooper Kupp. His breakfast buddy's throwing him the ball. The other receivers are they want him to break the record. I think he does it.
That's true. Like, the rest of the Rams really want him to get this record, so I think it's going to happen. It may happen pretty early in this one. All right, next one. Russell Wilson has not thrown for 300 or more yards or 3+ touchdowns in 10 straight games. So, Florio, are you rolling with Russ today as your fantasy championship quarterback?
Only if I'm desperate. We keep talking about the streaming quarterbacks at being Taysom Hill, Trey Lance, Tyler Huntley. I would play any of those quarterbacks over Russell Wilson today. I think after that, Russell Wilson comes into play, but I would definitely go with those 3 streamers over him. He just hasn't looked like Russ since he's come back.
Yeah, way to go, DK Metcalf, taunting a cornerback who was a 5th-round draft pick. I really love DK. He's a nice person, but I was really put off by that. But I will say this about Russell Wilson. Number 1, don't trade him, Seattle. You're crazy. Number 2, now that the Bears have a quarterback, I don't care. Don't trade him. Also, you got to sometimes just play this smart and realize that Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. His fantasy production is not there. It is not going to be there. They're going to run the football with Rashad Penny. So I'm going to avoid this situation as much as possible.
He is a good player who also just is not playing particularly well right now. Both things can be true, and I think that applies to Russell Wilson in this scenario. All right, time now for Fantasy Insurance presented by Geico. We're talking about some of the moves that can make or break a fantasy lineup, but when they hit really, really good. So let's talk some sleepers this week. Adam Rank, start us off, please.
Well, I'm going to start off with a guy who I absolutely love. And why don't you just go ahead and roll the video right now? Because I got to be honest with you. You are going to be so shocked when you see this player, and it's Dare Ogunbowale going up against the New England Patriots. And I understand that this is a very difficult matchup, but he's still going to get the volume, and that is a volume play. Now, I know we'll be talking about a lot of other guys who could possibly be a little bit better, but I think that, again, who's available right now, if you're in a pinch, if you're in a bind, Dare Ogunbowale is my guy.
I like that call there, Rank. I know one that you guys have both kind of discussed as a sleeper this week is Keyshawn Vaughn, running back on the Bucs. Look, we saw last week he broke out this 55-yard touchdown run. He showed that he's got some explosiveness to him. The Jets, they're the Jets. They give up the most fantasy points by far to running backs this season. And if this game gets a little out of hand, maybe we see Keyshawn Vaughn come in for some mop-up duty. I think if you're getting a little bit deeper at running back, Vaughn is a high upside play.
Definitely seeing a positive game script for the Buccaneers in this one. I'm looking at Tyler Higbee, in case you were of the mind to stream tight ends, which I know a lot of people are. We talked about how we expect Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford to have big games against the Ravens. I think Higbee slots into that category as well. Baltimore's been slightly better against tight ends lately, but they've still been pretty bad all year long. I just think this is going to be an aerial attack for the Rams, and Tyler Higbee is going to be able to get involved in that. So if you got
those uniforms,
those are nice.
They're not playing like they did in the first half of the season.
Everything going south.
Everything is coming apart at the seams. They are no longer in control of their playoff destiny.
I'm wondering if you had any New Year's resolutions.
Keep fighting, get some guys healthy.
The mental errors, we got to clean that stuff up.
I got to do a better job with this group.
No, not right now. Maybe next week.
Oh, eat better, work out, be kind. Don't draft any more Bears players. I'm just reading. I'm just reading what was written here. I didn't write that.
All right, don't take David Montgomery.
That's right. It's time now for fantasy resolutions for 2022. So let's start with you, Florio. How do you plan to be better in 2022?
It sounds simple, but I'm just going to be targeting players on good offenses. And I know it's easy to say, like, oh, there's too many mouths to feed on those offenses. Well, I don't think you were saying that if you had the Rams receivers or the Bucks receivers or Chargers or Chiefs, because these teams, they just score more points. They pick up more yards. So it's easier for everyone to have a good game. Like, we keep showing Cooper Kupp here, but if you have Odell recently or Robert Woods early on, you were enjoying this season as well. So I think when it comes to bad teams, it's easy to sell yourself, oh, they're going to have to trail and throw the ball. Doesn't always work out that way. I think it's simple, but it's effective to target players on good offenses, and I won't make the mistake of thinking, like, Trevor Lawrence could be a good quarterback again next year.
Well, that was, yeah. I mean, like, don't go with the guy who is a college coach. That's a good one. That would have been a good one as well.
All right, Rank. What is your resolution?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say my first part of my resolution is that I'm dropping half of my leagues. Like, I'm sorry.
Yes.
If I'm in a charity league with you, I'm cutting you a check next year. We're not doing this again. I'm not. Nope. You're not. Sorry. No disrespect. But the number one thing, my number one resolution is I'm not going to let internet guy bully me away from making the picks that I want to make. Because let me tell you, internet guy, here's who you hated coming into this season. Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, and Cooper Kupp. You hated all three of those picks. All three of them. You said they were garbage, especially Jonathan Taylor. Oh, you're going to take Jonathan Taylor first overall. Good luck with that. Thank you. It was really good. I really enjoyed that. Austin Eckler, are you kidding me? Really? Austin Eckler was fantastic this season. So I'm not listening to any of you. I wish you would have been a little bit more boisterous when I was drafting A.J. Brown, because that would have been better off for me. But A.J. Brown's been a stud when he's been healthy and available. So I actually don't feel too bad about that one. But I think next year, and this is something that the guru in the morning always talks about this, is he doesn't follow anybody else on Twitter. He doesn't follow any fantasy people on Twitter. And he just was like, because it's too much. It just clouds too much. So I'm like, I'm going to shut down my mentions around, in July. I'm not listening to any of you. I'm going to pick the players that I want to pick. Had I followed through with that, well, that had Tom Brady everywhere. So it didn't quite work out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they love
trust yourself.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, sometimes I think we all get caught up in that echo chamber where, like, people start talking too much about a certain player, and you're like, maybe they're right. Instead of just, like, believing in what you believe in. Like, it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
We either get talked into or out of certain players because of that. My resolution for next year is, one, to learn what this jazzy music is that sounds like it's from the action sequence of a 70s cop show. But also to avoid drafting running backs in that infamous RB dead zone, somewhere around 3 to 6, 3 to 7, something like that. It's like this year, we were trying to shoehorn guys in, guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who, again, was underwhelming, guys like Miles Sanders, who were sort of up and down before he got hurt. I mean, Mike Davis was sort of in that group, and he ended up being, made persona non grata thanks to Cordero Patterson. Meanwhile, you could have drafted wide receivers in that same area like Keenan Allen, like Cooper Bleepin Kupp, who right now is the top scorer in all of fantasy football. So that area has sort of proven over the last few years to be just kind of like the name says, a dead zone when it comes to drafting running backs. So I get to that point next year, and I'm looking at a running back, or I'm looking at a wide receiver in a similar situation. I'm probably going to take the wide receiver because, I'll get my running backs early. I'll get some other guys late. But just kind of those middle rounds, man. It's just no bueno right now. So.
You need like a modified zero RB strategy.
Yes.
Where you need like Jonathan Taylor or whoever your number one guy is going to be, and then just draft all your receivers, and then come back. Because you're always going to find running backs.
Yeah, you can find somebody in the late rounds. It's going to, ball out for you. It's going to be great. So. All right, next on NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico, we're talking fantasy flex starts. We got you. You need some flex appeal? We are there for you. There's A.J. Brown, the aforementioned, getting loose, and Travis Kelce. I don't know if we've mentioned this, but he has a big game today against the Cincinnati Bengals. Should be a lot of fun, actually. Sure to check that out. Be sure to stick around and check us out, too. Damian Harris getting warmed up. He and his Patriots teammates taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars today. Ramondre Stevenson, I believe, is back in the mix as well. This could make it interesting in that Patriots backfield.
It's going to be a heavy run contest.
I think it will be for both sides, honestly, in that game. Joe Mixon should see plenty of opportunity against the Chiefs. He's had a very good year.
He's been held under like 70 rushing yards for 4 consecutive games. I know he scored a lot.
He's scoring touchdowns, though. So
it's just volatile.
Yeah.
Like a 50-yard catch, too, looking like Jamar Chase out there.
I mean, apparently that's what you do now in Cincinnati. You just make big catches and rack up big yards there. All right, we're back on NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. You can keep sending us your questions on Twitter at NFL Fantasy or in the YouTube comments section there as well. But it is time for our favorite flex plays of the week. Make sure I got that right. I do have that right. Adam Rank, who are you flexing this week?
I'm going to go with Devin Singletary. And I don't want to take full credit for the utilization of Devin Singletary, but I will say I was on the TA postgame show after the Bills lost to the New England Patriots a couple of weeks ago, and I said, you know what, you got to have somebody other than Josh Allen run the football. And my fellow bald Sean McDermott was like, you know, that's a pretty good idea. And we're going to start getting the ball into Devin Singletary's hands. And the totals on the board that you see right there are correct. He's been a top 15 running back in 3 consecutive games, getting 15 fantasy points in each one of those contests. And he's shown a lot of versatility. They're using him as a receiver. He's allowed to get into the end zone. Like, it's been a big time for Devin Singletary, right in time for the fantasy championship. Also for the Buffalo Bills, because apparently they also want to win a Super Bowl, which is fine. I mean, I don't go. That's cool. I just need you to win my fantasy championship today. That's what I'm really concerned with.
I'm a fan of this Devin Singletary thing, too, so I thank you for putting that bug in Sean McDermott's ear.
Glad to do it.
Yep. Florio, who's your flex play?
I'm forgiving him for last week, but if you survived the less than 1 point that Melvin Gordon gave you, I say you start him up again this week. That was just his first bad game in a little bit. He is good to go this week, and it's against the Chargers, who give up a ton of yards on the ground. We just saw last week Rex Burkhead went for a career-high scrimmage yards against them. Rex Burkhead. I think this is going to be a game where the Broncos look to control the clock and run the ball a good amount, so I'm starting both of my Denver running backs this week if you have them in your championship.
Does this still count as a revenge game? Like, he's played against the Chargers before, right? So it's not like the revenge
ultimate revenge.
I forgot that it was a revenge game. So
yeah, I mean, that's where he started his career. Anyway, Elijah Mitchell is back, and he should be back in your lineups as a flex play. I mean, he has been easily the most consistently productive 49ers running back all season long. And that's not to take away from what Jeff Wilson has done or what Deebo Samuel has done in the backfield, but Elijah Mitchell has been the guy. And as Florio mentioned earlier in the show, the Texans, pretty awful when it comes to the run. In fact, they statistically have the worst ranked run defense in the National Football League. The Niners, we know, want to run the football. And I think whether it's Mitchell, whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Deebo Samuel, I think they're going to find plenty of running room against the Houston defense today. Time now for Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. So, Florio, you are up first. We'll start with Ezekiel Elliott. He has an early, an early fantasy draft pick, and I know he's been frustrating. I know you have him in some spots, and you have not been super thrilled with what he's produced for you this year. But is he still a must-start today against the Arizona Cardinals?
No. And all of my teams with Zeke are eliminated. They are not playing for a title. Wonder why. I have Zeke as a volume-dependent RB2. He is in my top 20 running backs still, but I have people that you could have grabbed off the waiver wire, like Darrell Williams, Ronald Jones, Rashad Penny, Elijah Mitchell, all ahead of him. So this former first-round pick he's just a big name at this point. I don't think he's a must-start.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see if he's going to be a first-round pick next year. We'll see. But DraftKings has him pegged right around 53.5 rushing yards for today. What is your fantasy projection?
Look how low that number is. I have him projected for about 14 fantasy points today because I like his chances still of scoring a touchdown. He gets enough volume where I think he could give you about 14, 15 fantasy points. But the ceiling that once was, 20 a game, that's gone.
All right, Rank, over to you now, talking about T. Higgins, who has 100 or more yards 4 times in his last 5 games. Does he break the century mark for a 5th time today?
Yeah, he's really been stepping up over the last couple of weeks, although he does have a really difficult matchup this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. If you've noticed, over the last couple of weeks, the Chiefs have been one of the better teams in all of football. A big reason why, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is playing well. He's actually the QB1 in fantasy over the fantasy playoffs. But the defense has been exceptional, shutting down opposing teams. So this is a pretty interesting matchup this week with one of the best receivers going today. I think T. Higgins is in that category against one of the better defenses.
Well, DraftKings has him pegged right around 73.5 receiving yards. What are you projecting fantasy-wise for him?
You know what? When we were doing our projections, I had him right around 75. So I think that 75 yards, we're looking at around 6 to 7 receptions, 75 yards. Right there, 13, 14 points. I think touchdowns being as volatile as they are, I don't really like to project touchdowns too much, but I think he has a nice, safe floor of those 13 fantasy points.
Yeah, that's pretty solid number there. That was Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now Use promo code WHOSCORES to claim your deposit bonus up to $1,000. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, next on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico, we're breaking out the Crystal Football, predicting the top fantasy scores, and our final list of must-starts. And then we'll give way to guys like Jamar Chase. He and the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Chiefs. And on the other side, well, there's Josh Gordon, and there's Tyreek Hill. That's the guy that we're really focusing on because he's going to get presumably a lot of targets from Patrick Mahomes today in a game that both these teams really looking to win. It's kind of important. Joe Burrow getting loose, the Tiger King himself, getting ready to host the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if we've mentioned that the Bengals are playing the Chiefs. I think it's the first time.
This is huge for Joe.
It really is.
It's a monster game, I mean, for Cincinnati in general.
Last week was kind of a measuring stick. This one, another big measuring stick to see where they stand amongst the AFC teams. And Mac Jones, who has had a decent rookie season. I'm pretty sure he's like 31 years old. He just looks
He's gotta be, yeah.
He looks way older than I think he actually is.
A lot of people are asking about streaming Mac Jones. They feature Bears coach Josh McDaniels there. No,
oh, wow.
Actually, I wouldn't hate that. I know that he gets kind of a bad rap for his time in Denver.
Well, but, and then the whole, pulling the shoot on the Colts, too, thing is probably not great.
I think the Colts are fine with
they're doing all right. All right, let's take a look again at our early game actives and inactives. Lamar Jackson is out, so is CEH and Miles Sanders. Cam Akers wasn't really expecting him to play, but Damian Harris is in, as is Marquise Brown, Antonio Brown, and Mike Evans also available for the Buccaneers in their game today against the New York Jetropolitans. We're doing late games? No, we're not. We're going to come back to NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico, and I'm going to look at my iPad and figure out what's next.
We're all looking. You know what's funny is, you would think Week 17, nobody's playing anymore. I get more questions now than ever.
Well, because now,
people I've never heard from in 8 years. Hey, do I start Javonte Williams today? Who are you?
I had someone DM me who I haven't spoke to since high school. I was like, what?
Everybody gets crazy. And if they put it like a dollar value, like if you attach a dollar value, I am definitely not touching it. Like, I'm not going to be in charge of that. Like, make your own decision. You got this far.
Yeah, you don't need my help. All right, let's answer some more questions, though. We'll start with you, Rank. Need to choose 2 of 3 wide receivers. The options are OBJ, Michael Gallup, and Devontae Smith.
I love Michael Gallup this week. I think he's a pretty good option. I also think that Devontae Smith is actually a really nice option against the Washington FT, who've allowed a lot of production to opposing wide receivers this season. OBJ is good. He's been great catching the football, catching touchdowns, I should say. But I think this is a Cooper Kupp day.
Yeah,
they all are, but
this is especially a Cooper Kupp day. Let's see, we have another one. This one for you, Florio. Goddard or Knox at tight end?
I like both of these guys, but I'm going with Dallas Goedert there. I just think there's safer volume for him. As of late, he's looked like a top 5 tight end. The Philly offense has kind of ran through him, where Knox still has a lot of other mouths to feed there.
All right. So we got one more. I guess this one's going back to you, Rank. I'm in Fantasy Super Bowl, and I need to fill my flex spot in standard scoring. So do I go Kirk, Boyd, or is that Madison?
Madison. You don't want the backup running back. You don't want Tyler Boyd. I'm going to go with Christian Kirk, who will probably see the most volume. He's averaged close to 13 fantasy points per game since DeAndre Hopkins has been out. Zach Ertz is the target monster, but Christian Kirk is right behind him. So that's who I'd probably feel the safest with, even in a standard league.
Yeah, should be a lot of passing. I think I'd stay away from Alexander Madison as well. All right, time for Sunday Fun Day. One last round of Sunday Fun Days for the season. We will start. Today's top scorer will be Adam Rank.
Oh, my gosh. Who is it? Give it to me.
I think you have Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. Oh, okay. I went I'm like, I couldn't have gone this chalky, right? No, I did. Cooper Kupp. I think everybody, again, this Baltimore Ravens defense is absolutely decimated. The numbers on the total on the board you see right there are correct. 30-plus fantasy points. Stop playing PPR. Go to half-point PPR. He's still very good in half-point PPR.
Everybody's got to go to half-point.
But yeah, he's going to end up being the top scorer. I think I could see the Rams funneling him. Although I do like Sony Michel an awful lot in this one too.
I was going to go Cooper Kupp, but you got to the homework before I did. So I had to pivot to Jalen Hurts. That's where I went today. Because Jalen Hurts, I think, is in a really good opportunity against the Washington football team. Rank talked about it earlier in the show, how he scored nearly 30 fantasy points against them earlier this season because he's got that safe rushing floor. He's the guy who's scoring all the rushing touchdowns. Like, Miles Sanders doesn't get to score touchdowns, but Jalen Hurts gets to score all of them. And then you throw in the fact that he can throw the football occasionally and maybe get the ball to Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. I think a big day's coming against Washington.
Yeah, I went a little chalky here, Rank. You went with Cooper Kupp. I have 2 teams with Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor on it, so I'm hoping that those 2 lead me to championships today. But Jonathan Taylor, I mean, he's Jonathan Taylor. You know how awesome he is. But it's a really good matchup. The Raiders are in the top 3 in fantasy points allowed to running backs. They've been getting ran all over as of late. Plus, with Carson Wentz being in the COVID protocol all week, I'm thinking that the Colts are just going to come out here and be like, let's do what we do best. That's run the football. And we're going to get a bunch of touches for Jonathan Taylor. And hopefully, myself and other people out there who have Taylor will be very happy tonight.
All right, that gets us to our must-start quarterback of the week. Rank, who's yours?
Well, I'll just stick with Cooper Kupp's quarterback and say Matthew Stafford needs to play. I mean, listen, we're going to start Cooper Kupp, and we're all in agreement that he is going to be one of the top quarterback or one of the top wide receivers. Then why wouldn't we go with this quarterback? So I think Matthew Stafford had a nice little streak there for a while where he had at least 3+ touchdown passes, and I believe it was 4 consecutive games. Had a couple of not so great matchups. I think coming back against Baltimore. And you know what? This game being in the early window, Arizona, Dallas is in the late window. The Rams win this game and Arizona loses. I think they end up taking the NFC West. So I think this is going to be a huge opportunity for Stafford.
All right, I was going to say Jalen Hurts, and I just talked about Jalen Hurts, so I don't really need to talk about Jalen Hurts again. So now I pass it over to you, Florio.
Yeah, I was going to originally talk about Jalen Hurts here as well, but I went with Joe Burrow because I said earlier I think there's a top 10 consensus quarterbacks that should all be must-starts. He is in my top 10 this week. I know the Chiefs' defense has been better as of late, but we saw when they played good offenses like the Chargers a couple weeks ago, they still give up points. I think this has the potential to be one of the highest-scoring games of the week, of the year. I think it's going to win a lot of people championships, and it's going to do so by Joe Burrow doing what he does, throwing for over 300 yards.
I'm really kind of digging this 50 Cent instrumental track that's playing behind these highlights right now. Let's move over to the must-start running back for the week. Who is yours, Rank?
You know what? I'm going to stick with a super chalky guy and say Boston Scott. No, actually, no. This is the first time. I'm sure people are watching like, why are you talking about the most obvious picks? Fine, I'll take somebody off menu and go with Boston Scott, who's been very good, especially when Miles Sanders is not playing. Boston Scott is their definite goal line back. Although I guess you could say Jalen Hurts is kind of their 1A. But a guy who actually plays running back, I would say it is going to be Boston Scott. Doing very well without Miles Sanders. The Washington FT has not played very well. Last week got smoked by Dallas. There's always like a little bit of hesitation because whenever you have a coach like Ron Rivera, you're like, oh, I wouldn't have wanted to have been at practice this week. Do they come out inspired, this FT? But I think that the Eagles have been playing really well. And, you know, I got to probably eat a little crow myself because when Nick Sirianni was hired in the first couple of weeks of the season, you're like, what are the Eagles doing? Like, what is the malfunction here? But Nick Sirianni's really done a nice job getting that team peaking at the right time, and I think that it'll bleed itself into Boston Scott having a nice game for you today.
Is it just me, or does it feel like that Cowboys-Washington FT game was like a month ago? Like, it was just last week.
All of them are like
it was just last week. It feels like it was forever ago, that blowout game. I'm gonna go with Ronald Jones as my must-start running back, and we talked about Keyshawn Vaughn as a sleeper, but Jones is the guy who's going to be, I think, the frontline back for the Bucs in this game. Tampa sort of realized, though, that as good as Leonard Fournette has been, it's hard to replace him with just one guy because Rojo's not the pass catcher that Fournette is, but certainly as good a runner, maybe even more explosive at times than Fournette is. The Jets, I don't know if you heard, they're not good. Especially defensively. They struggle against the run. This is about as good a matchup as you can have. I think Rojo gets a lot of points early, but I think also what happens is the Bucs get a lead in this one, and then you see a lot of them running the football in the second half. That's why Keyshawn Vaughn is a sleeper as well. But I do think that even if you look at halftime and Rojo's numbers aren't particularly great, I think you stay patient in the third and fourth quarter. You'll see those fantasy points start to tick up as he gets some more touches and maybe even finds the end zone. So there he goes. Who do you got, Florio?
Rashad Penny. I mean, this guy's just been playing good ball as of late. Over 130 scrimmage yards in 2 of his last 3 games. It's against the Lions, too, without Jared Goff. So we know the Lions struggle against the run. Only the Jets have allowed more rushing touchdowns to running backs. But I'm thinking that this is a game. We said earlier Russ hasn't looked like Russ. So I think they're going to rely on Penny. And he's been playing really well. He's been playing so well that he made Adrian Peterson's Seahawk tenure more forgettable than his Titans one.
I forgot that Peterson was a Seahawk until I saw news about him, like, is he going on IR or something? I was like, oh, wait, that's right. He is in Seattle. Look at those.
Oh!
Florio shoes. He was
my Christmas gift.
He was morose that they weren't going to appear on camera during the show today, so we carved out some time.
Well, thank you.
Just so you could get a close-up of his shoes. They're pretty sweet, though. I'm not gonna
Thank
lie.
you.
They're kind of
You
nice.
gotta be kidding me.
Rank hates this.
Let's see. What's the next? Oh, we're talking wide receivers now, right? Must start wide receivers. Rank, maybe you can talk about somebody that'll make you feel better than Florio's shoes.
I'm going to go with A.J. Brown, who is one of my top picks at wide receiver coming into this season. And obviously it didn't work out as well as I would have liked it to, but he can make up for it right now. Last week when he returned, we all said smash spot for A.J. Brown, and he went out and absolutely crushed it. And I think he's got an opportunity in this one, mostly because of the volume in a Ryan Tannehill revenge game. So I think that, there it is.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, I got my Adidas in there. So, and my nice pants. By the way, yeah, I'm wearing nice pants. And the ankles. I wear socks. What are you, like some boomer who's got to wear socks? I don't know. But I like A.J. Brown.
Wow.
My thing.
All right, A.J. Brown.
I don't know. Who wears socks? Is that still a thing? I didn't realize it.
Now I'm a boomer, but I'm gonna sit here quietly and talk about Jaylen Waddle for the next minute or so. Jaylen Waddle, though, must start against the Tennessee Titans. He's been a must start for a while now, just because the insane, immense amount of volume that he's been getting in the passing game. I mean, the targets have been ridiculous for him. And I think that continues. And the place that we have been picking on Tennessee all year long has been in the passing game. They have given up a lot of yards through the air. They have struggled against wide receivers. And this is an offense that really, speaking of the Dolphins, it hasn't really been able to get anything diverse going on. But in terms of a lot of short throws and easy throws to Jaylen Waddle, they've been really, really good at that so far this year. So I think that keeps going. All right, Florio, your turn.
I'm going with T. Higgins here because as good as Jamar Chase was early in the year, that's how good T. Higgins has been as of late. He's their wide receiver one there. He's getting more volume. He's getting the bulk of the production. We know he's their favorite weapon in the red zone as well. I'm looking forward to a big game in this one, and I'm really looking forward to next year, all the T. Higgins versus Jamar Chase draft debates. And shout out to my friend Marty who's watching the show and said my sneakers look awesome, so thank you.
They're nice sneakers.
There we go.
Oh, see, now everybody gets it. And I have socks on, too, because I'm a boomer, apparently. I'll take that. That's fine. But I do like my shoes. They're very nice and spiffy. All right. That gets us to must-start tight end. Who is your must-start tight end, Rank?
The Dawson.
Of course.
It's got to be the Dawson. Let's close it out with the Dawson. Going up against the Atlanta Falcons, who do allow a lot of production to opposing tight ends. I know that, Michael Frank was besmirching him earlier, saying that he's not good, which is
didn't
fine.
say that.
He didn't say that. I'm being facetious. I'm exaggerating. But he did say that there's a lot of other guys that this Bills offense needs to take care of. But, that's been the case all season. The one thing that we really love about him is his receiving touchdowns. It's one of the things that we've really wanted for him ever since he came into the league and got that baby Gronk label. This season was the year that he finally stepped up and showed that promise. They designed plays for him as well. I think there's an opportunity. I know it's volatile to chase touchdowns, but I think at the tight end position, that's what we're doing because there's not a lot of guys who get a lot of receiving yards. The one guy who does is Kyle Pitts, and he's got a tough matchup this week.
I feel like every tight end, or every other tight end comes in the league, gets the baby Gronk title, which seems sort of unfair to all those other guys. I'm going to go Dallas Goedert, who, I don't know, maybe he was once baby Gronk too, for all I know. But the Eagles don't throw
baby Ertz.
Baby Ertz. The Eagles don't throw it a ton, but when they do, they tend to throw it to Dallas Goedert. He's getting, I think, more than 25% target share over the last few weeks. So he's getting plenty of opportunities. The matchup's pretty good against Washington. But more than anything, it's just about the volume and the fact that he has been the leading pass catcher in this offense for a while. So Dallas Goedert, have him in your lineup this week. Yep.
His former teammate, I think, is a must-start as well, Zach Ertz. One of the best in-season trades, at least in recent history, because it gave us two must-start tight ends in Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. And you heard Rank say it earlier when, since DeAndre Hopkins has gone down, Ertz has become their top target for Kyler Murray there. So I think in what has the potential of being a very high-scoring game as two of the best offenses in the NFC face each other, I think Zach Ertz is a top-5 must-start tight end this week.
Ertz has been really good since going to Arizona. You're right. That's a trade that really worked out, especially for Arizona there. All right, that gets us to our Fantasy Championship bold prediction. So, Adam Ray, please get us bold for this last week.
I'm going to say that Sony Michel ends the week as a top 3 fantasy running back going up against the Baltimore Ravens. I know we've all been celebrating Cooper Kupp, and he's going to go out there and he's going to be awesome, but there's still a lot of opportunity for Sony Michel. As much as we love the Rams passing offense, we need to remember that Sean McVay's offense is dependent on the running back position, so that means huge game for Sony Michel. So I expect him to go out there and crush the Ravens, especially if the Rams, are trying to seal away that NFC West title.
Well, I'm going to say, because I didn't get to the homework first and I couldn't put Cooper Kupp as the high scorer of the week, I'm going to say he has 40 points, which means that I have Jalen Hurts as the top scorer of the week, which means he's going to go even more bananas. But the point is, Cooper Kupp has a fantastic matchup. He's been great all season long. As Florio pointed out, the Rams teammates want him to go out and have a big game and start to set records. So why not just make this a Cooper Kupp fiesta this week?
I'm saying, Rank, I don't know if you'll like this one, but I think Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams combined for 75 fantasy points today. Look, since 2020, Aaron Rodgers is averaging over 30 fantasy points per game against the Vikings, and Devontae Adams averages even more. He's had at least 30 in every game. I expect another big game tonight.
You don't realize how much I don't like the Vikings, so that doesn't bother me at all.
That's your boy.
Yeah. So here we are on the set together for one last show. So many thank yous to give out. Appreciate everybody who's helped out behind the scenes, all the producers, all the technical folks who've helped us. It's been amazing. Thank you to all of you you who have been watching this all year long. Hopefully we have entertained and educated and helped you. Best of luck in your championships. Congrats in advance to those who win. Condolences to those who don't. Enjoy Week 17. We've appreciated being with you. Stick around. We got more coming up, though. We'll be back with you next season. Enjoy.
I wanted to do an MSG curtain call, but apparently